What is up, everyone? Good afternoon. We've got Matt joining us from CPE in Vegas. How's it there? Hot? Is it getting hot?
No, it's actually cold today, so it's back and forth. But it's
Okay.
just that I think I walked 27,000 steps yesterday, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's how it goes, man. You gotta walk everywhere in Vegas.
Yeah,
But
no
it's
doubt.
always really hot for Black Hat, so we'll see how that goes. Well, welcome everyone. This is I don't know what this show's called, man. It's in the know, whatever. We're gonna try to do this at a better cadence, but we're gonna cover some news. We have some big news to cover today. While we do work for Pax8, we are sort of giving our
Representing
own
ourselves here
exactly,
in
yeah.
this scenario.
But we
There we
do want to
go.
give our own take on this piece of exciting news. I may or may not have stolen this from Pax8 social media, but I love this video and I want you guys to see it. So let's roll.
We're here to announce an exciting partnership and relationship with a new vendor. We look for best-of-breed products that are built for the channel first or channel ready. And today we have a market-changing vendor announcement by introducing to you Amazon and AWS. I'm happy to announce that Amazon is locked on what this is, and they are really excited about the SMB opportunity, and together we're going to come together to take advantage of this. Please join us in taking your business to the next level with this amazing product.
How freaking exciting. I mean, who better to pump you up at Pax8 than Ryan Walsh? The pregame, I love it, Eric.
It's definitely
but yeah, Pax8 has announced a partnership with AWS. And, I'm sure those of us that work at Pax8, we have to hold news in for long periods of time. So I'm super excited to be able to chat.
And I'm not great at that, but I did my absolute best. They said something about losing a toe, and it just got really serious. And so
exactly,
I've been
they got to turn up the heat. Pax8's bringing AWS, and this is super exciting news for this multi-cloud future we want. And Amazon really jumping in with us into the SMB market. I'm super pumped about it. Matt, what are your thoughts? Where does this go first? But before we do that, there's a Pax8 webinar that we do want you to attend, because people way smarter than us are going to share the details of how AWS with Pax8 is going to work and all the important things you need to know.
Yeah,
so
we
that's
won't
going to be
spoil
next month.
that show. Yeah.
So I've made a short link. It's not sponsored. It's my domain because it's short and easy for you to type. So I'm going to drop that here for you to see. But Matt, first thoughts.
I mean, I think it's prescient, right? And it's a little self-serving, but I think when you start thinking about cybersecurity, and you start thinking about like the conversation of I am going to adapt some type of a cloud strategy, right? My thought process. I'm much more of a SaaS/IAM dependency with some extensibility into other SaaS programs, and right. So my model is kind of not that way. But think about what when I've used AWS, I love it. Brian Wheeler, yeah, AWS, bro, for real. And I am V, like I want to say that I am VEIT. So like this dude was definitely in my presentation. Epic. I did a presentation for Visual Edge IT at their sales kickoff, and they were like amazing. But they kept having me. I had the opportunity to go, I am, and then the whole crowd had to say VEIT. It was amazing. Awesome. Like, you can't give me a remote control. You can't give me that kind of power. I used it like 9 times. So back to the point, though, if I was living in a world where I, as a code producer, as a vendor, as one of the people that we do business with, as a MSP that's driving their own capabilities internally with their own code, their own low code, no code, kind of implementations across things, then, or API centric methodologies. But I think if I was one of those individuals, and when I was one of those individuals, I had two clouds. I had one cloud that was my SaaS identity provider that was owned by one team that was my security team that did all the provisioning of users. And guess what? I had an AWS cloud where my function as a service applications, my WAFs, my extensibility for my tool sets lived in another person's purview in
Right.
another cloud, dependent upon the identity from the first, but not in control of it, which meant I had this
Right.
separation of duties capabilities that was able to be done. And so, like, essentially, I think that this is amazing. I think some of the things that I won't get into because I don't want to spill the beans about why we're doing this are the very reasons anyone partners with a Pax8, in that kind of a fashion. So I believe this is really Amazon's awesome try to extend the understanding that we know we have a place in this world. Our function as a service game is way stronger than a lot of other providers out there. Right. And I actually had one of the most interesting moments of my life while I was here at this show. I was headhunted by Alibaba
Wow.
Cloud. Like, they
Okay.
specifically waited around for me to finish a conversation for about an hour. And she then approached me standing there and saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I'm like, there were 12 other people you could have talked to. What is this? Anyways, I digress. But I do think this AWS play is just more in this vision of where we're heading and where the world's kind of heading, that if we're going to do cloud, we need to be smart about it. We need to be
Mhm.
hybrid. We need to understand where our world lives, define where our data lives. So I guess it's hard to believe I'm pretty stoked about this and have been for the last 6 months when I couldn't talk about it. Yeah. So thanks for asking, Dom. I'm stoked about this. This is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. I'm a big fan of multi-cloud workloads for reasons you mentioned, right? But I think also just having redundancy or different capabilities like you're talking about. I've built things in AWS that I simply couldn't build in Azure only because it's not Azure's focus, right? What I
Yeah.
was building is not what Azure was built for.
Yep.
So
Ephemeral
having the ability to bring both to
workloads,
your
a lot of the
party is huge.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, like ephemeral workloads, things that you can bring. AWS is really good at it, but there are some gaps, right? There's things in the billing space. There's things in kind of how they predict your world that we kind of are pretty good at. So,
Yeah. So please,
it's one of those
I'm gonna
things
put
down
that
the
link
road,
up
right?
one more
Yeah,
time.
please
This
do the
might be the most
AWS.
number of times I've plugged a link, but
You've been super pluggy on this, like,
I
for
have been,
sure. You
but
definitely have been
I
pluggy.
think this webinar is going to be worth your time, especially if you have any interest in Amazon Web Services. I
Yeah.
know the crew that's going to run it, and they're amazing. Um, that's it. That's the headline today, AWS. So let's move on. We were talking before the show, and you did math because you're a better math guy than me. Some $10 billion entered into the channel
Austin
in the
Roberts
last
counted on his
2 hours.
fingers and toes on that. So I have it on good
Wow.
authority. It's
Okay.
over 10 billion.
Got
Yeah.
it. More than $10 billion has entered the MSP space in 2 days via two large acquisitions.
Yeah.
So let's
It's
talk about
crazy.
that. What does that mean for our industry without really going into specific acquisitions? But what does that mean?
Well, it's one of these things where when there is opportunity, there is a lot of things that come with it. And so what I would say is that you look at that private equity, but it's really just the spear tip of the vanguard that's already been here, or the end of the vanguard that's already been here, in the sense that
Right.
if you took this one thing, Dom, I'm going to hand you a $2. Let's make up a fake bill. I'm going to hand you a $3 bill. If you
Hmm.
put that $3 bill in your pocket and maintain its integrity and don't get it torn, you
Right.
will now have a $10 bill in your pocket. And every time you place a $3 bill in your pocket, you will have a $10 bill. If you told that to a private equity person, they might have to go clean up, like,
Right.
legit, right? like on one way or another. And so I think the interesting part of that is that if you look at what's happening in our world, and has been since probably 2018 or 19, is that you have the first time this very categoric step chart of what someone's worth. An MSP that makes $6 million in revenue, or $5 million in revenue, or $3 million in revenue, has a set EBITDA multiplier, right? If that's 3 million in revenue, it might be 3 times EBITDA. If that's 6 million, it might be 6 times EBITDA. And those don't go linear, but the point is there's set numbers. And I say might be because people that are closer to this will know the exact numbers right now. But if you took that to a $10 million entity by bolting those together, you would hit this new watermark where everything underneath it is now worth 10 times EBITDA. or
Right.
15 times EBITDA. And so as you start getting in that, you're seeing massive droves of private equity come in, because every time they put a $3 bill in their pocket, they get a $10 bill. And that's times
Right.
millions of dollars.
Right.
So
Right.
we're seeing that. But what comes with that is, income expectations, a lot of poison sometimes, especially in, code development models. But in a world where you're looking at efficiencies, efficacies, and customer service ratings and the things that MSPs think about, private equity is probably a good thing. And then if you take that to the vendor space, private equity often means the funding necessary to overcome this. And I'll call it what it is. You have a maturing MSP. The people listening right now on this MSP are maturing. If you look at some of the recent responses to these acquisitions, it's been, I'd say immature, maybe even in some cases, but it's been a mature response to understand their world and what's going to happen when they pull this lever, because they're getting good at that. We might want to touch on a couple of comments. Scott, for sure, exciting stuff. Thank you so much. This has been,
Super
I
pumped.
didn't do this work. We've got the people inside the organization that are just crushing it to make this happen, and it took a lot. So it's awesome. Alan Miller says, as long as the investments are focused towards growth, not value extraction, it may not be terrible. I'm with you, right? Looking at private equity in the medical practice, ER staffing, even home ownership, I'm not sure I can have that hope. I also agree with you. I would say, though, there's an interesting aspect that when you have that loss, and the loss is there, it's just, where do you want to call it, right? But when you have that loss, Alan, and Alan's a good friend of mine, I love him and respect his opinion. We often disagree, but I still love him. And so we often learn those lessons by watching the building collapse. We often learn those lessons by watching us not have a fire escape. And then eventually we have a fire escape. But if you never heard about the fire, nobody'd make a fire escape. Right. And so you start getting into this world where it's great to have the microscope on us a little bit. So I don't know what your thoughts are on Dom, but I'm just saying that equity is making a big play, and $10 billion does not play around in moving markets.
That's a lot of coin, man. And I think it's, Wes made a really good point, is it's a sign that the industry's grown up or nearing maturity.
For sure.
So it's, when PE money comes into your industry, obviously, it can create poison and create difficult things. And that's frankly just the nature of the beast, right?
God bless our capitalism,
right,
and we love it, right?
But at the same time, I think there are growth-minded investors in this market looking to create something great, right?
You made me spark up. I get, I get tangential, but I actually remember reading quite recently that they were talking about, it was in a private investors kind of group, but they were actually starting to talk about adding not only just the performance of the company to this conversation, but in their investments and due diligences, their cybersecurity postures, their response, their breach load, the things they've done in the past, the things they've been, and they're being forced to, because the news is driving it down their throat, right? And so it seems like we're going to see the scope in combination with this maturing MSP. MSPs themselves are getting much, 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 much more mature and understanding. And I think in any market, no matter what it is, I don't care if you're making widgets or paintballs, in any market, if you have a low maturity consumer, then the overall product doesn't mature. Right. And it comes to give the people what they want. Well, the problem is these people don't necessarily know what they want yet. And now they're figuring it out, and they're saying it. And the people that I respect in this channel are my peers that are now standing up and saying, this isn't okay, vendor. And I hope these fresh influxes of capital drive that. So,
no, and I think
I know you're still in your temporary
DNA,
office, so I'll tease you about it, but you might have kids around.
I do.
Don't give away these secrets.
No, I think, I don't know. I'm excited for it. I'm nervously excited for it. We also saw our first unicorn MSP, right? Which was really cool.
A pretty cool unicorn vendor that I might know and love.
I know.
We won't name names.
Who just made unicorn status again?
Yeah, we won't say it. Yeah, it's somebody.
What a week. But yeah, I think it's very interesting to see that our market exists, frankly, right? Like, it didn't exist in a lot of eyes. Like MS Who, how much of the technology sector at large knew about the channel? Even if you look in the cyberspace a few years ago, right? It wasn't a thing. And now we're finally to a point where the cyberspace and the PE space and other spaces pay attention. And now we're going to see, regulation come in as a result of that.
We're
We're
already
going to see
seeing it with
rulemaking happen.
Cercia, right?
Right,
You know,
right.
yeah, Cercia already poked that in there. If anybody's not familiar, we had a long form on this, but Cercia is the Cyber Incident Reporting Act for Critical Infrastructure of 2022. It got brought into an omnibus bill, but it was first defined in there MSP. There is
Right.
no word
Yeah.
MSSP, just MSP in that.
Right.
Now they talk about security services, but they define it as your service provider. And
Right.
what's great about that is it really answers the question of, do I need to deal with security? And the answer is yes. And so you have all of these forces, right? Like in the way I like to think of this conflagration of different troops meeting on a battlefield, and their capabilities are being brought to bear in the right place. And so I think that a lot of what we're seeing is like a lot of this coming forward. You have a maturing MSP market and consumer that's standing up and maybe putting 900 frowny faces on something in perfect succession, right? You know, and you have these people that, and take it for what it is. I don't know that I agree with that statement, but I thought it was hilarious. But I would say, you know, as you start seeing the maturation in their capabilities and understanding, you'll see the same maturation in their requests and their demands. And as you see that, then the vendors that can be agile and overcome the mountains of tech debt, the mountains of things that exist back there. And so I think with that additional set of eyes, and I know enterprise doesn't have this solved. I don't want to lie to you, ladies and gentlemen. Enterprise is still in the same boat. They make the same stupid decisions. They deal with the same stupid things. But I would say that as we see all these forces come together, we really could be in a very Renaissance time frame, if you will, for our industry in a way that we can be the tip, the vanguard of delivering, you know, security and making people better with the same hockey sticks as their competitors.
And making
right?
businesses overall better. Right. That's always been my
100%. Yeah, the capability.
You know, the SMB is the huge majority of the U.S. economy, and I'm sure it's true for other world economies. So this hopefully, and I think it will. I think there'll be some speed bumps, but I do think the end result of this will be that the MSP channel is more equipped to better businesses, right? Better the core of economies. Well, I think that was it. I mean, I think
that was everything from my list. I mean, there's some stuff that it's not public yet. I can't talk about, not related to Pax8.
We're gonna have another show real soon,
yeah.
but
we will. Yeah,
we will.
Unfortunately,
stuff coming. But we're super excited. We wanted to.
Oh, we did have one more thing. Holy crap! Do you want to see Dom and I? Do you want to talk about modern? Right. Do you want to live in a world where we talk about boot camp and modern office and securing modern office and delivering it to our clients and making them better? Like, please come to our actual boot camp. It's coming up. What date is that, Dom? Do you have any of that info?
May 24th, 25th, live and in person in Denver, Colorado. I'll put a link, another link. Man, I'm plugging a lot of links today. I promise nobody's getting paid on these.
Yeah, we're not trying to get hard on putting up these out in the paint, but we seem to be.
You know, short links make life easier. You can type them. It's the whole thing. But live and in person, if you've been a Pax8 partner long enough, you know, before the world blew up, you hopefully have been to one of these. Refreshed agenda, but it's our Modern Workplace Bootcamp, formerly M365 Bootcamp. We would love to have you. Agenda, registration, all that jazz is in the link.
Where we can look over your shoulder and answer questions that are unique to you.
And you can build it with us, right? Experiences that we can't create over a Teams meeting as good as those are. We're super excited to build with you. So domk.pro/NBC May will take you to the Pax8 event page. You can get the agenda. If you're technical, come. If you're not, send your technical people.
It is fairly technical. I do want to say that.
Teaching them security, digital transformation. We're talking about SharePoint. We're talking about Power. We're talking about Teams. A lot of topics in there that we would really love to share with you. With that, I think we're going to wrap up this edition of In the Know. Don't know when the next episode is going to be. We'll give you at least a couple hours notice, and we will see you next time. Thanks.